Southern soldiers said that the water was so cold as they splashed down onto the bank that surely all the ice houses from there west to Cumberland must have been dumped into the river. But a woman from Frederick would say even that Potomac River could not wash them clean. They were so thin and tattered that she said the scarecrows in her own cornyard wouldn't want to exchange their clothes with them. They had been living on apples and corn. In fact, long after this campaign, they called it the Green Corn Campaign. They probably had no idea as they progressed north that their victory or defeat, as one historian would say, would hang the fate of the Confederacy and the very existence of the United States of America. Walt Whitman will say a lot about the American Civil War. There's a couple things that struck me as I got ready to do this program this evening. 10 years after the American Civil War, he will write that the real war never gets to the books. I guess what he's saying is it really had to be there. Another thing he will pose is, will America of the future, will we, say, this vast, rich union, will we understand the cost of itself? Perhaps two things to think about as we head out into the darkness to revisit that fateful day, September 17th, 1862, in the second year of war. It's harvest time, the single bloodiest day of the war. Please join me. Yep, still coming. Okay. From start to finish is about an hour. We're going to basically be following the paths of the lantern lights as we walk through the battlefield, and I'll be talking probably in between scenes. At any time, if you cannot hear me, please let me know. I can usually up the ante a little bit. Just please be careful of your step. It's rather dark. If you have a flashlight and would like to use it, you're certainly more than welcome to. I have a caboose in the back, gale coals. If at any time you have a concern or particularly a safety problem, let us know right away. Lee's ultimate destination was not this little German village here in Sharpsburg, Maryland. What he hoped to do is to head up the Cumberland Valley, burn the bridge over the Susquehanna at Harrisburg, and then turn his attention to Philadelphia, Baltimore, or Washington. The Baltimore and Ohio Railroad and the Pennsylvania Railroad up near Harrisburg were as to the Union as the Mississippi River was to the Confederacy. And so as he takes his army northward, he's got a problem. And that problem is that the garrison, the railroad garrison at Harper's Ferry, is still in place. And so at Frederick, Maryland, Frederick is kind of like the hub on a wheel. The roads bisecting through it are a good location for him to camp and make some decisions. What he'll decide to do is pretty risky. He's going to divide his army in 5 different columns. One head to Boonesboro, one to Hagerstown, and 3 columns to head towards Harper's Ferry, surround it and surrender it. Harper's Ferry is laying basically right at his back, astride his communication and supply lines, and so he needs to move it. Why is that risky business? For those of you who have studied the Civil War, or those of you who have served in the military, know that an army divided is much more likely to be very vulnerable than an army united. So very quickly, Lee needs to get Harper's Ferry to surrender and then rejoin his forces and head north. They move out of Frederick. Within 3 days, McClellan's army starts to move out of Washington, trailing Lee, but protecting Washington at the same time. They bivouac on the same ground where Lee's army was earlier. And when that happens, there's a discovery made on that campground. It's one of those twists of fate, and is going to show McClellan Lee's cards. Let's find out what happens. Please join me.